Imagine two alarms going off at the same time on a Monday morning. In the first room, one person pulls the covers up higher, telling himself, 5 more minutes, what's the big deal? In the second room, one person gets up immediately, takes a deep breath, sits quietly for 60 seconds to clear his mind, stretches his shoulders, and then turns on the computer to do the hardest thing before dawn. What separates them? Not talent, not luck, but discipline. The thing that turns a normal day into a launching pad for a lifetime. We live in a world designed to make us soft. Dopamine is just a few taps away. Endless news feeds, full seasons of shows, 20-minute food delivery. Amazon, DoorDash, Netflix, everything is fast, easy, and enjoyable. But comfort has never been the creation of character. A muscle that is not subjected to stress weakens. A will accustomed to indulgence breaks when it should stand firm. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over events." Discipline, then, is not a shackle. Discipline is a liberation. When you take control of your inner steering wheel, you are no longer tossed about by the winds of life. When you master your reactions, you change the direction of your destiny. But discipline doesn't have to make you a cold machine. True discipline is living in alignment with what's most important to you. If health is a value, you prioritize clean eating and adequate sleep. If family is a priority, you put down your phone when your kids talk. If your career is your mission, you write every day even if no one applauds. Discipline is the silent commitment to "I do this because it's worth it." Sounds idealistic? Look at the people who lived it. The Stoics didn't sit in ivory towers daydreaming. They survived wars, betrayals, plagues, losses, and stayed upright thanks to their principles. Epictetus was born a slave but free in his thoughts. Marcus became emperor in the midst of a pandemic and still wrote meditations to keep himself sane. They left us a very real message. Knowledge is not enough. Only action can change our lives. So how do we start? Starting tomorrow morning. First, win the morning. Don't let notifications dictate your mood. Before you read an email or text, read yourself. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what's the most important thing today? Do one difficult task first thing in the morning. 10 minutes of exercise, 10 minutes of writing, 10 minutes of meditation. Why morning? Because mornings are like a newly replenished willpower account. Spend wisely now, and your entire day will be lighter. And remember, the best routine is one that makes sense to you. There's no need to copy others. Just keep your word to yourself. Every time you keep your word, you cast a vote for your identity as a disciplined person. Second, take responsibility for your emotions. It's not what happens, it's how you respond. When someone cuts you off on the freeway, there's a pause between the fiery reaction and the calm. In that space lies power. The power to choose the story you tell. They insulted me, or they're probably in an emergency. Ask yourself, does this thought help me move forward? What would the strongest version of me do? You don't have to pretend you're not sad or angry. You just have to not give the steering wheel of your emotions to someone else. Third, come back to the present. An untrained mind is like a browser with 50 tabs open, lagging, overheating, and never getting anything done. Close some tabs with a question, what is the most important thing I can do right now? When you eat, eat. When you walk, walk. When you talk, look the other person in the eye. Being fully present is a form of discipline, and the key to peace. Fourth, change your perspective on adversity. The obstacle becomes the way. Every time you encounter an obstacle, try replacing "why me" with "what is this teaching me?" A startup that gets rejected by 20 investors is not necessarily a failure. Sometimes it's just lifting weights for its 21st pitch. An injury doesn't close a career. It opens up the discipline of recovery, the wisdom of understanding the body, and the perseverance that we rarely learn in our healthy days. Fifth, practice being hard on purpose. A cold shower, a fuel-only dinner, a walk instead of a drive. Not to torture yourself, but to get used to feeling imperfect. When you can stand cold, hunger, tired safely, you will be calmer with the real cold, hunger, tired of life. That is inner capital. And finally, don't forget the invisible clock. Memento mori. Remember that you are finite. Think about death, not to be afraid, but to live clearly. If you had only 6 months left, what would you stop doing? What would you start doing? What would you say to your loved one tonight? Your answers are your priority map. Every night before bed, ask yourself, did I live what I value today? If the answer is no, tomorrow is your chance to fix it. At this point, the state-owned enterprise boss might be asking himself, what do I choose right now? I suggest choosing something small, but doing it for 30 days. Wake up 20 minutes earlier, write 10 lines every morning, walk 2,000 steps after lunch, turn off notifications for 60 minutes of deep work. Small but lasting. Because this game doesn't reward the loud starter, it rewards the persistent. If this part touched a spark in you, let me hear what you have to say. Comment below. I choose discipline over ease. I am becoming unstoppable. Hit like if you're ready to stop living half-heartedly. Share with a friend who needs a reminder. And subscribe so you don't miss out on the next tools to help you build discipline day by day, choice by choice. Discipline doesn't bind you. Discipline unbinds you to let you live what you value most. Have you ever wondered why the moments of true pride are not those spent on the couch, but the moments when you overcome a difficult challenge? Maybe it's when you work out consistently and lose a few pounds after weeks of hard work. Maybe it's when you resist the urge to spend money on a useless item so you can save for your family. Or maybe it's when you stay calm during an argument and don't let your anger ruin your relationship. Those moments create a sense of, I did it. And that's the true reward of discipline. For the Stoics, discipline was not constraint, but inner freedom. The more self-controlled we are, the less we are controlled by external circumstances. Imagine if a negative comment can bring down your mood for the whole day, then you are unwittingly giving control of your emotions to someone else. But if you can keep your cool, then you are truly free. Marcus Aurelius once reminded, you have power over your mind, not over outside events. Life will always have challenges, losses, and things that are beyond our control. But what matters most is how we respond. When we discipline our thoughts, we are no longer swept away by the waves of erratic emotions. We choose to act with direction, hold fast to our values, and gradually take control of our lives. In other words, discipline is a framework for living. It does not turn us into emotionless machines, but it helps us live in alignment with what is truly important. When you choose to eat healthily instead of indulging in a whim, you are living for health. When you choose to read books instead of endlessly surfing the internet, you are living for wisdom. And when you choose to listen patiently instead of getting angry, you are living for love. Discipline is not a chain that binds us. Discipline is the wings that help us fly towards the life we want. Have you noticed that the morning is like a musical prelude to the rest of the day? If you start off-key, the rest of the day will be in disarray. But if you start strong, the whole day will have a different tune. The Stoics had a very clear principle: win the morning and you win the day. Most people, as soon as they open their eyes, reach for their phones, scroll through dozens of notifications, read the news, and read the comments. The first thing they let into their heads is the noise of other people. Drama, judgment, or unfinished work pressure. They think they're updating, but in reality, they're just starting their day in a passive state, letting the world control their minds. The Stoics were different. Marcus Aurelius, though emperor of a vast empire, did not begin his morning with a barrage of messages from distant provinces. He began by checking in with himself, reminding himself of what was important today, and mentally preparing himself for the challenges ahead. For him, the morning was a sacred time, one that no one else could enter before his mind had settled. This is not just philosophy, but also scientifically proven. In the morning, the brain region responsible for reason and control, prefrontal cortex, most active. That's why it's easier to concentrate and be disciplined in the early morning. As the evening progresses, the willpower muscle gets more tired, so we give up easily, snack easily, skip exercise easily, and fall into bad habits easily. So what does morning win mean? It's not some long checklist copied from the internet. Morning win is keep your promise to yourself. If you say you're going to get up at 6 and do it, you're reinforcing in your mind a belief that says, I said I would do it. If you promise to read 10 pages of a book and you finish it, you're building an identity as a disciplined person. and that identity will follow you all day. For example, a busy business person might choose to start the morning with 15 minutes of journaling to organize their thoughts. A student might choose to wake up early and do some exercise to increase their energy. A parent might spend the morning sitting quietly with their child, listening before getting caught up in the workflow. It's not the form that matters, but the action. Personal meaning, and he really stuck to it. People often say, "I'm not a morning person." But the truth is, no one is born with a preference for getting up early or doing difficult things. It's a habit that is learned. Like a muscle, the more you practice morning discipline, the stronger it gets. And when the morning is successful, the rest of the day flows with that positive momentum. Remember, mornings don't have to be complicated. Just do something small but challenging. Get up and make your bed right away. Write down 3 things you're grateful for, or do a short exercise. That's more important than creating a fancy routine that you'll never stick to. And if you slip up one day, don't beat yourself up. The Stoics remind us, failure is not the end, but the opportunity to get back on track. So the question for you tomorrow morning is, do you want your day to start passively or with your first victory? Have you ever noticed that sometimes just a small action from someone else can ruin your whole day? A driver cuts you off on the road, a coworker makes a thoughtless comment, or a text message goes unanswered. So all day long, we are grumpy, frustrated, and even take that annoyance home with us and take it out on our loved ones. But when you think about it, the problem is not the what happened, but in how we react. That is the second Stoic principle. Take full responsibility for your emotions. Epictetus, who was a slave before becoming a great philosopher, said, "It is not the event that makes us suffer, but our view of it." Between the fact that something happens and our explosive reaction, there is always a small pause. And in that pause lies the greatest power. The power to choose how to react. Think back to the last time someone upset you. Maybe they forgot a promise or said something that hurt you. At that moment, your brain made an interpretation. They look down on me. I'm not important to them. And that interpretation creates negative emotions. If the interpretation is different, maybe they're just too tired, maybe it was just an accident, then the emotions have changed. Interpretation creates emotions, not facts. Marcus Aurelius, during his years of war and betrayal, kept asking himself, does this thought move me forward? Does this action match the strong person I want to become? It was through this habit of questioning that he remained calm in the midst of chaos. And that's something we can do right away. When anger arises, take 3 deep breaths and ask, what story am I telling myself? When anxiety creeps in, ask, what negative future am I predicting that may not happen? Just change the story, and your emotions will change direction. The Stoics also practiced a special method, imagining loss, not to be pessimistic, but to learn to appreciate and be less dependent on things beyond their control. As you learn to let go of the need for things to go your way, you will find more peace. Because emotional freedom does not come from forcing others to change, but from we control our own reactions. Just think about it. If you stopped letting someone or something control your emotions, how much more energy and peace would you have in your life? Instead of giving the steering wheel of your emotions to someone else, take it into your own hands. Remember this. You can't choose what happens, but you can always choose what happens inside you. That is real power. Have you ever sat down at your desk, opened your laptop, and after a few minutes found yourself drifting off somewhere? You'd check your email, open social media, remember something from the past, or worry about something that hasn't happened yet in the future. The result is a day gone by, exhausted, but with nothing really accomplished. That's the biggest enemy of discipline, fragmented mind. The Stoics saw this thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Stay in the present." Because life only happens in one place, right now. The past is gone, it cannot be touched again. The future is not yet here, it is largely beyond our control. If we lose the present, we lose real life. Think back to a moment when you felt most alive, perhaps a sweaty but energizing workout, a deep conversation with a loved one, or a creative moment when you lost track of time. That was when you were 100% present, not distracted by dozens of thoughts. Modern people call it flow. The Stoics called it prosos, total attention. But that's easier said than done. Today's world is designed to steal our attention. Phone notifications, breaking news, short videos. Every second, thousands of things compete to pull us out of the present. That's why presence becomes a form of discipline. Discipline to say no to distractions. Discipline to bring your mind back to what is important right now. The practice is simple. When your mind starts to wander, stop and ask, where is it going? What is the most important thing I can do right now? This question is like an anchor that pulls us back to the present. If you are eating, really savor the flavor of the food. If you are walking, feel each step touching the ground. If you are talking, give the other person your full attention and gaze. These small things seem ordinary, but they are the way to train the presence muscle. The wonderful thing is, when you master the present, worry and fear naturally diminish. Because anxiety lives only in the future, regret lives only in the past. In the now, there is usually nothing to fear. And that peace makes us more clear-headed, more disciplined, and more deeply enjoy life. The Stoics called this state ataraxia, a steady stillness. It doesn't come from avoiding life, but from focusing on what you have, the present. And every time you bring your mind back to now, it's like another workout in the mental gym. The more you do it, the stronger your inner strength becomes. So the question for you right now is, are you truly living in the present moment, or is your mind wandering to the past and future? Have you ever been in a situation like this? Trying your best to move forward, and then an unexpected wall comes up? Maybe it's a rejected project, a failed plan, or a personal situation that throws everything off course. The natural human response is to get frustrated, to ask yourself, why me? Why can't it just go right for once? But the Stoics had a different perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "That which hinders action is the very thing which promotes action. That which blocks the way becomes the way." For them, difficulties are not a sign that you are going in the wrong direction. Difficulties are training school. Just as muscles grow only when subjected to stress, so character and discipline grow only when tested. A bamboo stick does not grow flexible because of a gentle breeze, but because it is accustomed to withstand storms. Take a very recent example. An entrepreneur who gets rejected dozens of times by investors. A normal person would give up. But if he treats each no as a weightlifting exercise, he will hone his message, strengthen his will, and when the 21st opportunity comes, he will be a different person. Or an athlete who suffers a serious injury. Instead of seeing it as the end, they use the recovery time to learn more techniques, increase their mental strength, and then come back stronger than before. That is the Stoic mindset. Don't waste pain. Suffering is real, loss is real, but instead of letting it consume us, let it teach us. Epictetus once said, "We have no control over what life throws at us, but we have complete control over how we handle it. And if we know how to reframe, each failure will become a brick to build our character." This mindset has a beautiful name, amor fati, love your fate. Not only accept adversity, but embrace it as an integral part of the journey. Try changing the way you ask questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this teaching me?" Instead of, "I can't take it anymore," try, "I am being prepared to become a stronger version of myself." When you change your perspective, you will see one thing very clearly. Obstacles are no longer enemies, but teachers. They train you to patience, courage, and wisdom that peaceful days never bring. And at some point, you will realize it is the falls that make me the person who can stand firm. So next time you come across a roadblock, instead of asking, "Why me?" smile and say, "This is an exercise for me." If you pay attention, you will see that most of us are living in a comfort shell. Everything is designed to be as comfortable as possible. Food is just a click away. The room temperature is always pleasant. Entertainment is just a phone away. It sounds great, but in fact, it is a sophisticated trap. Because when we are too used to comfort, just a little difficulty makes us feel lost and panic. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. Seneca, one of the richest and most powerful men in Rome, had a strange habit. He would periodically sleep on the hard floor, eat simple food, and wear rough clothes. Not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he knew a secret. Voluntarily stepping into difficulty will create true strength. Think about it. Did any of the most valuable skills you've ever learned come from ease? Reading, which was incredibly difficult as a kid. Driving, which wasn't easy the first time. Having a frank, awkward conversation. Those were the moments that helped you grow. There was never a time when easy led to progress. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, provision and practice with discomfort. Not for the sake of self-torture, but for the sake of preparation. If we can endure the cold from a cold bath, then when life really gets cold, we won't shiver. If we can practice fasting for a meal, then when financial hardship suddenly strikes, we'll stay calm. Modern science has also proven this. Studies have shown that when we experience intentional small stress, the brain and body adapt and become more resilient to deal with large stress. People who exercise are subjected to muscular pressure, and their bodies become stronger. People who take cold showers, their brains produce more hormones that create more concentration and willpower. That is deliberate preparation. How to apply it in life? It's simple. Choose a slightly more difficult path. Walk instead of drive. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Start your morning with a sweat session instead of coffee. Spend a day without your phone to endure the discomfort of silence. Go to bed early. Wake up early, even if the bed wants to keep you there. These small choices are not meant to be ascetic, but to train you to stand firm in any situation. And the interesting thing is, the more you practice facing difficulties, the less you fear them. What was hard yesterday will become normal today. And when life really throws you a challenge, you will smile. I trained for this. Remember the words of Epictetus, freedom comes not from having everything, but from needing less. When you are no longer dependent on comfort, you will find yourself freer than ever. So ask yourself, what small challenge can I choose today to build strength for tomorrow? There's a truth that most of us try to avoid: death. We act as if we have unlimited time, postponing dreams, avoiding important conversations, wasting hours on meaningless things. But the Stoics were different. They held to a clear principle. Always remember that one day we will leave this world. They called it memento mori, remember you will die. It may sound pessimistic, but it is actually the greatest source of strength. Marcus Aurelius once kept a skull on his desk, not to haunt him, but to remind him, I could die today. How would I live? That question made him more focused, more decisive, and live on what was important instead of letting time pass by uselessly. Think back to a time when you were reminded of the fragility of life. Perhaps when you witnessed an accident, when someone you knew suddenly passed away, or when you suffered a sudden illness. In that moment, everything became clear. Petty arguments suddenly became meaningless. Long postponed dreams suddenly became urgent. Every moment of life became strangely precious. That is the power of looking into the mirror of life and death. Steve Jobs, when facing illness, also said, remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most powerful tool I have ever encountered to help me make decisions. Because once we truly realize that time is limited, we will no longer want to waste it on trivial things. The Stoics recommended this daily practice. Every morning, remind yourself today could be your last day. Not to panic, but to focus. Every evening, ask yourself, if tonight were my last night, would I be satisfied with how I lived today? If the answer is no, that's a signal to make adjustments tomorrow. The truth is, I'm not afraid of death. I'm just afraid of realizing who I am in the end, never really lived. So, instead of avoiding it, let the awareness of death be your compass. It will help you avoid pointless arguments, waste less time, and dare to walk on the path you truly desire. When we know that every conversation could be our last, we listen more deeply and love more. When we know that every day could be our last, we live more fully, more courageously, and more disciplined. So the question for you is, if you only had 6 months to live, what would you do differently today? And more disciplined. There's a rather special mental exercise that the Stoics practiced regularly. They called it premeditation of evils. Imagine the losses and misfortunes that may happen. Hearing this, many people will think, isn't that too pessimistic? imagining bad things will only make you sadder? But the truth is the opposite. It is by imagining the loss that we know how to cherish the present and training for future stability. Epictetus once advised his students, when kissing your child goodnight, remind yourself, tomorrow I may not be here anymore. It sounds cold, but not to sow tragedy, but to make every hug, every moment with your child become more precious. When we imagine loss, we love more deeply. Try applying this to your daily life. If you imagine losing your job tomorrow, you will appreciate how valuable your job is today. If you imagine your health failing, every healthy step you take today will be a miracle. If you imagine a loved one suddenly leaving, every minute you spend with them will no longer be wasted on phone calls or indifference. Imaginary loss makes the present more vivid. Not only that, visualization is also a form of mental training. Instead of letting unexpected events knock us down, we have a draft in our head. If that happens, what will I do? How will I get up? It's like practicing fire drills so that when a real fire happens, people don't panic. Stoics rehearse for loss so that when real life happens, they don't fall apart. A modern example, Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived a Nazi concentration camp, once said, "Everything can be taken away from you except one thing: the right to choose your attitude in any given situation." That's the Stoic spirit. Once you get used to imagining the worst and how you'll deal with it, you're no longer a passive victim. You become an active chooser of your response. How to practice this? It's simple. Once a week, spend 10 minutes visualizing the loss of something important: a job, health, finances, or a relationship. Don't just dwell on the sadness, but also imagine how you would cope, how you would recover, and what strength you would discover within yourself. The amazing thing is, when you do this, you not only become stronger, but also more grateful. A glass of water becomes precious, a handshake becomes warmer, an ordinary afternoon turns into a gift. And if one day the unexpected happens, you will no longer be surprised. You have learned to stand up in your mind, so reality does not knock you down. Modern people call this psychoimmunity, the ability to bounce back from adversity. The Stoics taught it over 2,000 years ago by imagining loss. So the question for you today is, if tomorrow you lost the thing you cherish most, how would you live today differently? When most people set goals, they think, I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to make an extra $50,000, or I want to have a happier relationship. But they forget one important thing. Results don't come by themselves. It requires a new person to achieve. If you keep the same lifestyle, same habits, same mindset, how can you expect a different result? The Stoics saw this very clearly. Epictetus once said, "First decide who you want to be. Then do what is necessary." That means instead of obsessing about results, focus on the person that goal requires you to become. For example, do you want to be healthy and lose weight? Instead of just staring at the number on the scale, ask yourself, how does a healthy person eat, sleep, and exercise? Do you want to be more financially stable? Ask yourself, how does a financially disciplined person spend, save, and invest? Do you want a deeper relationship? Ask yourself, how does a great partner listen, share, and be present every day? Every little action is a vote in the identity box. When you go for a run, you cast a vote for your healthcare identity. When you write every day, you cast a vote for your creative identity. When you stay calm instead of losing your temper, you cast a vote for your mature and self-reliant identity. And the more votes you cast, the more that identity becomes yours. This is how the Stoics trained ascesis, mental training. Just as muscles are built with each lift, character and discipline are built with each small action repeated. Not one sudden burst, but hundreds of steps of perseverance, gradually transforming you into the version of your goals. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Be like a rock that the waves keep breaking against, yet remains still, and the raging of the sea subsides around it." He did not become that strong man just by talking, but by living like that every day, every little decision. The most important thing here is that you don't have to change everything overnight. Start with a small, consistent action. Want to be a writer? Write a short paragraph every day. Want to be disciplined? Start by waking up at the promised time. Want to be patient? Try listening for 2 more minutes before interrupting. Each repeated action is a building block for a new identity. And at some point, you will no longer have to try to discipline yourself. You become disciplined. At that moment, the right action is no longer a burden, but becomes instinct. So the question for you today is, what does your purpose require you to become? And are you willing to cast your first vote on that identity today? Do you notice the paradox? Many people set goals with enthusiasm, but after a few weeks, their motivation evaporates and their plans fall through. They write down long lists of things they want to do, but end up not sticking to any of them. Why? Because they focus too much on destination, forgetting that the most important thing is the way. The Stoics saw this early on. Seneca once said, "Every new beginning comes from the end of another beginning." What he means is, instead of staring at the destination, create a sustainable system, small things repeated every day, and the results will come naturally. Imagine this. If you want to lose weight, many people just focus on the number on the scale. But if you build a system of 3 simple things, eating at home, exercising for 20 minutes every morning, and getting 7 hours of sleep, then even if you don't obsess over the number, your weight will gradually change. Or, if you want to write a book, if you just think about 300 pages, you'll feel discouraged. But if you create a system of writing 1 page a day, a year later, the manuscript will be on the table. This is also confirmed by modern science. People do not fall below their ambitions, but fall to the right level, daily routine. Or, in other words, we do not reach the goal, but only reach the level system. Marcus Aurelius also developed a clear system for himself. Every morning he wrote down things to remember, and every evening he reviewed whether he had lived up to his values. He did not set a goal of becoming a good king every day. He just repeated the system of internal training. And it was this system that made him one of the most respected leaders in history. The great thing about the system is that it's independent of inspiration. Motivation may come and go, but if you have created a track, then no matter how tired or discouraged you are, the system will keep you going. It's like brushing your teeth. No need for excitement, just repetition. So how do you get started? Keep the system simple enough that it's hard to fail. Don't promise yourself an hour of exercise every day. Start with 5 push-ups. Don't force yourself to read a book a week. Start with 2 pages a night. Don't try to meditate for 30 minutes right away. Try 3 deep breaths. It's the small but steady will gain momentum and expand over time. And more importantly, remember, the goal is just the direction. The system is the actual path that gets you there. When you focus on the system, the results will come as a natural consequence. So instead of asking, when will I reach my goal? Ask, is my system today pushing me toward the person I want to become? Have you ever thought that you would be happy if you had more money, if you had your dream job, or if others recognized you? But the more we live, the more we realize that all of those things can come and go. Money can be lost. Reputation can be erased by a rumor. Health can decline. Even people who love us today can turn their backs on us tomorrow. So what is the real victory, the thing that no one can take away? The Stoic replied very clearly, virtue. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A happy life doesn't require much. It's all in your perspective." The core he mentioned is the 4 fundamental virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, self-control. These are not far-fetched concepts, but extremely practical, living tools. Intelligence is to see things as they are, without adding or subtracting from them through illusion or fear. A wise person makes wise decisions, not letting momentary emotions guide them. Courageous, it is doing the right thing, even when it is scary, even when it is unpopular. It is the strength to not compromise with what is wrong. Integrity is to live fairly, knowing that your happiness is linked to others. A fair person becomes a support, a trust for everyone around. Abstemious, it is knowing when to stop, enjoying without being dependent, working hard without being exhausted. It is the art of keeping balance in a world full of extremes. And the great thing is, virtue cannot be taken away. Some may take your money, but not your integrity. Some may smear your reputation, but not your courage. The world may be turned upside down, but your inner wisdom and self-control are still yours if you forge them. Epictetus, from being a slave, found absolute freedom through virtue. He said, "No one can hurt you without your permission." That means true peace does not come from external circumstances, but from keeping your mind upright. The Stoics were not against success or external pleasures. They still valued wealth, status, love, but they called them indifference, things that are good to have, but not worth the risk of losing your soul. The most valuable thing is, do you live every day with wisdom, courage, integrity, and moderation? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to become like your enemy." It's a reminder, others can behave badly, but we can choose to live higher. That's true victory. When virtue is your compass, you will no longer be swept away by praise or blame, nor will you fear loss. You will stand firm in all events, because what is essential will never waver. So the final question of this journey is, today, this decision, this action, does it make me a wiser, more courageous, more just and more temperate person? If the answer is yes, then regardless of the outcome, you win. That is the ultimate victory. Victory by virtue. The important thing I want to emphasize is, you don't need to apply all 10 laws at once. That would be the trap of overload. The Stoics understood this very well. Progress is more important than perfection, so choose one law, just pick a habit. Maybe it's morning wins, emotional control, or building small systems, and stick with it for 30 days. There will be times when you stumble, there will be days when you miss a beat. But discipline does not mean never making mistakes. Discipline is knowing how to get up, adjust, and keep going. It is that bounce back that creates inner strength. Remember the words of Marcus Aurelius, "You have power over your mind, not over external events." When the mind is trained, it directs action. When action is repeated, it forms character. And character, that is the real power, the thing that no one can take away. But the value of discipline extends beyond the individual. A disciplined person can stand firm in chaos, can delay gratification in favor of greater rewards, and can maintain dignity even when pressure is mounting. And when there are more people like that, society becomes stronger and more resilient. Personal discipline not only changes individual lives, but also contributes to building a more resilient world. So I want to leave you with the challenge. Choose now but one Stoic. Let you feel touches you the most, and commit to living with it for 30 days. Try it, and you will see yourself change. If this lesson has given you a spark, please press like, share your biggest lesson in the comment section. And subscribe so as not to miss out on other tools that will help you become a stronger version of yourself. And before you leave, affirm out loud to mark the beginning of your new journey. I am disciplined. I am strong. I am becoming who I'm meant to be.